My name is Worko Hailemariam, Director of EGST.
My name is Than Boutman, and I'm an instructor and coordinator for hybrid education here at EGST.
My name is Samuel Tedder. I'm a part-time instructor here at EGST.
I am Daniel Ilma, EGST Research Officer, and I'm Acting Dean of Students here at EGST.
About Frumentius lecture, especially this year, the main topic is the Old Testament and Christian faith today. But one of the things the Frumentius lecture helped us to read imaginatively and to reflect the Old Testament texts accordingly. Particularly the lecturer, Professor Walter Moberly, challenged us to take the passage, the texts of Old Testament to the current reality. Particularly today, he helped us to think, speaking truth to the power, to those who are in power in different countries, including Africa and elsewhere in the world. So I know Frumentius lecture since 2000, from the beginning. The first speaker was Professor Andrew Walsh, the late Andrew Walsh. And then this is, I think, the 23rd of Frumentius lecture, which we benefited a lot. So I'm really happy to have Professor Moberly this year, and I'm also very thankful for those years who had the Frumentius lecture with us in Ethiopia, Ethiopian Graduate School of Theology.
Yes, I think these lectures from Professor Moberly were providing a helpful and insightful way of engaging Scripture. He walked us through 4 different stories in Scripture and modeled for us how we can engage Scripture in an imaginative way, showed us how it can be done well and how it can be done faithfully. And that has been it's a new perspective for how we can engage with Scripture communally, but also individually.
Yes, I have now participated in, I think, 5 Frumentius lectures. And this time it was focused on the Old Testament and its relevance to Christian faith. I think that was a very good choice. The Old Testament has played an important part in Ethiopian Christianity, and how do we read it well? How do we understand it well as Christians is very important. I think Professor Moberly helped us in that. So I think this was a very important time.
I am very much delighted to organize Frumentius lectures. I usually coordinate and organize as a research officer the Frumentius lectures. We had organized a very well Frumentius lectures this year. We are very much happy. We have Professor Moberly as Old Testament scholar. We have learned so much from him. This year, Frumentius lecture has helped each one of us to think about Old Testament as a Christian book, and also he motivated us to read the Scripture as his passion. I have learned that he has passionate to make us reading Scripture. So we are grateful to have him as an Old Testament scholar.
Well, whenever we mentioned the term academic, people think that it is detached from spirituality. But this year, of course, in the past many years, we are trying to help to connect the academics with the spiritual life. So there are, we had speakers, sometimes they might focus on the academic side or highly philosophical. Sometimes they try to balance between philosophical and spiritual. This year we enjoyed it. We realized that we cannot detach, we don't need dichotomize the philosophical, the academic aspect and the spiritual life of the church as well as individuals.
So the idea that Professor Moberly presented and the model that he gave to us of full imaginative seriousness, offers a new method and a new way for students, instructors, as well as church leaders and in communities to engage Scripture in a new way. And that, I think, can further the conversation about how we can equip pastors, how we can equip church leaders to engage Scripture faithfully in order to equip their people, the congregation, and as well as also to build up the church to be a faithful presence and a faithful response in challenging times.
It's related to kind of the big theme of how do we approach the Old Testament. And what Moberly, Professor Moberly is representing here is this engagement with the text as it is, often in narrative, and to enter into the world of the text with imagination, with engagement, and trying to really understand and be impacted by what it wants to communicate. So this method is a little bit different from some of the traditional approaches of historical, critical, very technical analysis or thinking about dating and timing, historical background or sources, and these kind of questions. So I think what Moberly, Professor Moberly here modeled is very helpful, not only for the academic, but also for the church. And I think a fruitful way forward would be to kind of discuss on that what is our approach? How do we read the Old Testament and learn from it? How are we drawn into the stories of the text to learn from there and to be impacted? So the method, the approach, I think, is a big contribution, and we need to discuss that more.
Frumentius lecture has been conducted for so many years here at August, and we believe it contributes a lot to theological discourse here in Ethiopia. We have been inviting scholars from different continents, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from America. This year, Professor Walter came from UK, and Ethiopians have been learning from it, and also the lecturers coming from different continents have been learning from us. And I believe it contributes a lot to theological discourse in Ethiopia. And this is one of the roles of August. August as a higher institution, as a graduate school, prepares such a platform for theologians to come together, scholars to come together and discuss theological issues and biblical issues that are relevant and contextually relevant to Ethiopians. So we believe August will continue contributing such an important discussion for academia as well as for issues the church are facing in Ethiopia.
My takeaway from this lecture: read Old Testament imaginatively.
First lecture on Job was, for me, very important personally. And in there, this idea that somehow our love and loyalty to God is tested in this life. And often we don't understand what happens, what negative things happen to us or in the world. But somehow in that, God is wanting to purify our love, that we love God because He is God, and not because of some benefits or blessings, but just recognizing that He's God. So that was very meaningful for me.
There were probably two important lessons taken away from these lectures. The first is that God does not give up on us, and likewise we should not give up on God. And secondly, also that even though we may not succeed, we are still called to be faithful. Even when things do not go our way, when we do not think, when the things don't go the way we expect or how we hope, we are still to remain faithful to the lives that God has called us to follow Him, to follow in the steps of Jesus.
Professor Walter's presentation has really addressed some of the issues we are facing. Today's lecture, for example, addresses how the church should relate to the powers, authorities. The church and the state relation is under discussion in Ethiopia. We are struggling how the church should relate to government, how the church should relate to powers. So speaking truths to powers is very powerful framework for the churches to take as a benchmark to decide which models they will be following to relate to the church, to relate with the state. So it was important lecture. I found it very informative, insightful, challenging for all of us.
So I'll answer the first one, me personally. I think these lectures have offered me a new way to learn about God personally, a new way of engaging His Word, and a new way of understanding what is God trying to say to us today. What does God want us to do today in my community, and how can I live that out faithfully through His Word, through careful study of Scripture.
These Frumentius lectures at EXT are impactful here in Ethiopia, but can have a worldwide impact through the people who attend and how this message goes forward. And two things come to mind, especially in this last lecture where we somehow engaging this area of how do Christians engage and enter into political space or where power is handled for all society. This tension between power and being truthful and honest, and then there is this temptation to be deceitful for self-serving purposes. And so we're learning from the Old Testament about these themes, how to remain faithful as Christians and speak truth to power and not be deceived to somehow become self-serving in that. How do we serve the common good and be a truthful prophetic voice in that? The other theme I think that was very impactful, or kind of a bigger picture from these lectures, is how does Scripture, and here it was the Old Testament, shape our spiritual life? What is our view of spiritual life? And especially this kind of tension that are we as Christians at the same time real with God and real with the world, the way the world is? Are we able to kind of engage the real problems, the real pain, the real suffering, and at the same time hold on to our faith and trust in God and somehow keep these together and be very real Christians, and our spirituality in this way somehow humbly authentic. So I think these lectures speak to these kind of big issues and can have a big impact.